Epictetus. Book 1, Chapter 1, Concerning What Is in Our Power and What Is Not. Examine the various capacities of the human mind, and you will find that most are incapable of self-analysis. The art of grammar, for instance, possesses the ability to judge written language, yet it cannot turn its gaze inward to assess its own nature or value. The same is true of music. It may judge a melody, but it remains silent on the worthiness of the musical art itself. When you write to a friend, grammar will guide your hand in the formation of letters and the structure of sentences, but it will not whisper whether you ought to write the letter at all. Music will instruct you in the playing of strings, but it cannot decide for you whether this is the moment to sing or to remain silent. There is, however, one faculty that differs from all the rest. It is the rational faculty, the power of reason itself. Uniquely, it possesses the authority to examine both itself and everything else. It alone can interrogate its own nature, determine its capabilities, and estimate its true worth. It is this faculty that judges the value of gold, for gold itself does not proclaim its own beauty. It is the user of impressions who assigns that value. Reason stands as the arbiter of all other arts, evaluating their utility and seizing the proper moment for their application. In the grand design of existence, the gods have granted us control over this one supreme power, the ability to make correct use of our impressions. This is the ruling principle, the only thing truly within our command. All other things, our bodies, our possessions, our reputations, our families, they have not placed in our power. This was not a matter of divine unwillingness, but of divine necessity. We exist on this earth bound to a physical vessel, tethered to material companions and circumstances. In such a state, how could we possibly remain unhindered by external forces? Imagine that Zeus himself speaks to you, clarifying this limitation. He might say that, if it were possible, he would have granted you absolute freedom over your body and your property. But make no mistake, this flesh is not your own. It is merely clay, cunningly compounded. Since he could not give you the body, he gave you a portion of his own divinity, the power of impulse and repulsion, of desire and aversion. In short, he gave you the power to govern how you interpret and use the impressions of the world. If you guard this faculty and place your entire identity within it, you will never be hindered. You will never groan, never blame, never flatter. Is this a small gift? It is everything. Be content with it. Yet, despite this divine endowment, we turn away from the one thing that is truly ours and cling desperately to the many things that are not. We attach ourselves to the body, to wealth, to office, to other people. Because we tether ourselves to these fragile external things, we are weighed down by them and dragged wherever they go. We become like a sailor fretting over the wind. We sit anxiously, peering at the sky, asking what wind is blowing. If it is the north wind, we despair. We ask when the west wind will blow. It will blow when it chooses, or when the master of the winds commands it. You are not the steward of the winds. You are only a passenger. Your task is to make the best of what is in your power and to take the rest as it comes. When a tyrant commands a man to be beheaded, the man might ask if he is to die alone. But would the company of others make the death easier? The true philosopher looks to the example of Lateranus, who, when condemned by Nero, held out his neck to the executioner. When the first blow failed to sever his head, he did not panic or beg. He simply recoiled instinctively, and then, with supreme composure, offered his neck a second time. This is the spirit of one who understands what is his and what is not. When Epaphroditus questioned a prisoner on the grounds of his offense, the man replied only that if he wished to say anything, he would say it to the master, not the servant. We must always have this distinction ready at hand. I must die. Must I then die groaning? I must be imprisoned. Must I then be imprisoned weeping? I must suffer exile. Can anyone prevent me from going with a smile, cheerful and serene? If the tyrant demands my secrets, I will refuse, for that is in my power. If he threatens to chain me, I will tell him he is a fool. He can chain my leg, but not even Zeus himself can conquer my moral choice. He may throw my body into prison or sever my neck, but he cannot touch the sanctuary of my will. These are the thoughts that a student of philosophy must practice day and night. They should be written down, read, and rehearsed until they are part of the soul. Thrasea used to say that he would rather be killed today than banished tomorrow. But Musonius Rufus corrected him, asking what folly it is to choose between two evils as if one were in our power. If death is the heavier evil and banishment the lighter, who gave you the choice? If you must be executed, accept it. If you must be exiled, accept it. Why struggle against what is not yours? Consider Agrippinus, a man who never hindered himself. When news was brought to him that his case was being tried in the Senate, he remarked that it was the hour for his exercise and cold bath. Having finished his routine, he was told that he had been condemned. He asked calmly, "To exile or to death?" "To exile," came the reply. "And my estate?" "It has not been confiscated." "Very well," he said. "Let us go to Aricia and eat our lunch there." This is the portrait of a man who has undergone the necessary training. He has rendered his desires and aversions immune to external injury. He knows that he must die, but if that death is not immediate, he will eat his meal because it is time to eat. When the time comes to die, he will do so as one who is merely returning what belongs to another. Book 1, Chapter 2. How a Man May Preserve His Proper Character in Every Circumstance. To the rational creature, there is only one thing that is truly unbearable: the unreasonable. Whatever is reasonable, however, can be endured. Consider the act of being whipped. By itself, it is not intolerable. The Spartans submit to it because they have learned that it serves a reasonable purpose. Even hanging is not unbearable in itself. When a man feels that hanging is the reasonable course of action, he goes and hangs himself. It is the unreasonable that crushes the human spirit, while the reasonable appeals to it naturally. Yet we must observe that what one man considers reasonable, another finds unreasonable, just as they differ on what is good or bad, profitable or unprofitable. This is the very reason we require education, to learn how to apply our natural preconception of the reasonable and the unreasonable to particular cases in conformity with nature. To do this, we must judge not only the value of external things, but also consider what is consistent with our own moral character. Take a common dilemma. For one man, it may seem reasonable to hold a chamber pot for another simply because he calculates that if he does not, he will be beaten or starved, and if he does, he will escape harm. For another man, however, such an act is not only intolerable to perform himself, but unbearable even to witness. If you ask me, should I hold the pot or not? I can only tell you that food is better than hunger, and escaping a beating is better than suffering one. If you measure your interests by these standards, then go ahead and hold the pot. But, you object, it would be unworthy of me. Now you are introducing a factor into the inquiry that comes from you, not from me. You are the one who knows yourself. You know at what price you sell your integrity. Different men sell themselves at different rates. When Florus was debating whether he should enter Nero's festival and perform, as the emperor demanded, Agrippinus told him, "Go ahead and enter." Florus, surprised, asked, "But why do you not enter yourself?" Agrippinus replied, "Because I do not even consider the possibility." For once a man begins to weigh the value of externals against his own character, he has already begun to lose his footing. He forgets who he is. If you ask me, is death or life preferable? I answer, life. Is pain or pleasure preferable? I answer, pleasure. But if I do not act in the tragedy, I will be beheaded. Then go and act, if that is your choice. But I will not. Why? Because you consider yourself merely one thread in the vast robe of humanity. You wish to blend in, to be indistinguishable from the multitude, just as one white thread is like another. But I wish to be the purple thread, that small, brilliant band that gives splendor and distinction to the whole. Do not ask me then to be like the rest, for if I am, how can I remain the purple? Helvidius Priscus understood this distinction well. When the Emperor Vespasian sent word forbidding him to enter the Senate, Helvidius replied, "It is in your power to strip me of my senatorship, but so long as I remain a senator, I must enter." "Very well," the Emperor said. "Enter, but be silent. Do not ask for my opinion, and I will be silent. But I must ask it, and I must answer what I believe is right. If you speak, I will kill you. Did I ever tell you that I was immortal? You do your part, and I will do mine. It is yours to kill. It is mine to die without trembling. It is yours to banish. It is mine to leave without grieving." What did Priscus achieve by this, being but a single man? What does the purple thread do for the robe? It stands out. It provides a beautiful example to the rest. If Caesar had told a different man to stay away from the Senate, he would have answered, "Thank you for sparing me." Such a man would not have been worth banning in the first place, for his silence would have been guaranteed by his fear. Consider the athlete who was at risk of dying unless he submitted to the amputation of his genitals. His brother, a philosopher, came to him and asked, Well, what will you do? Will you cut them off and return to the gymnasium, or will you die? The athlete refused to submit to the knife. He steeled himself and died. Someone asked, Did he do this as an athlete or as a philosopher? Epictetus replied, He did it as a man. He had been a victor at Olympia, a man who had stood in the arena, not merely one who had been rubbed down in a village wrestling school. For him, life without his manhood was no life at all. Another man might have offered his very neck to the knife if it meant he could keep living without it. This is what it means to weigh one's character in the balance. Come now, Epictetus, shave off your beard. If I am a philosopher, I will not shave it. Then I will behead you. If it pleases you, behead me. How does a man recognize what is in keeping with his character? How does the bull, when the lion attacks, realize his own strength and rush forward to protect the herd? It is clear that the possession of power is accompanied by the consciousness of it. Whoever has such strength will not be unaware of it. But a bull does not become a bull in a day, nor does a man become a hero instantly. He must undergo winter training. He must prepare himself and not rush blindly into situations that are beyond his strength. Consider carefully the price at which you sell your freedom of will. If you must sell it, man, at least do not sell it cheap. Greatness may belong to others, to Socrates and his kind, but that does not excuse us from the effort. If I am not born to be Milo, you say, why should I train my body? Because you still have a body to care for. If I cannot be Croesus, why should I manage my property? Because you still have needs. We do not abandon our discipline simply because we despair of reaching the absolute peak of perfection. I may not be better than Socrates, but if I am not worse, I am content. I may not be the purple thread, but I can strive to be better than I was yesterday. Book 1, Chapter 3. From the thesis that God is the Father of mankind, how may one proceed to the consequences? If a man could only take this thought to heart, fully and completely as it ought to be believed, that we are all, in a primary sense, children of God, and that God is the Father of both men and gods, then I suspect he would never conceive a mean or ignoble thought about himself. Consider the way you view worldly power. If Caesar were to adopt you, your arrogance would be unbearable to others. You would walk with a stride that declared your safety and your significance to the world. Yet, knowing that you are a son of Zeus, why are you not elated? Why does this lineage not lift your spirit in the same way? The reason lies in our mixed composition. We have come into being with two distinct elements mingled within us. On the one hand, there is the body, which we share in common with the beasts of the field. On the other, there is reason and intelligence, which we share with the gods. Because of this duality, our inclinations split. Many of us, indeed the vast majority, lean heavily toward that unhappy and deadly kinship with the dead flesh. Only a few, a very few, turn their eyes toward the divine and blessed connection. Since it is inevitable that every man will treat things according to the beliefs he holds about them, those few who believe they were born for fidelity, for honor, and for the sound use of their impressions will never think of themselves as lowly or abject. But the multitude acts quite differently. What am I? Such a man asks. A poor, miserable little creature, he answers. Or, looking at his body, he says, This wretched flesh of mine. Wretched indeed. But you possess something far superior to flesh. Why then do you neglect that higher gift and cling instead to the clay? It is because of this downward inclination towards our kinship with animals that we see men transforming before our eyes. Some become like wolves, faithless, treacherous, and harmful. Others become like lions, wild, savage, and untamed. But the majority of us become foxes, or even more pitiful creatures than foxes. For what is a slanderous and malicious man if not a fox, or something even lower and more wretched? We must take the utmost care, then, to ensure that we do not degenerate into one of these beasts, forfeiting our humanity for the instincts of the wild. Book 1, Chapter 4. On Progress. The man who is truly making progress is he who has learned from the philosophers that desire is directed toward the good and aversion toward the bad. He has learned, too, that serenity and a smooth flow of life are achieved only when one never fails to get what he desires and never falls into what he would avoid. Having realized this, he has totally removed desire from himself, or perhaps deferred it to a later time, and he applies his aversion only to those things that are within the sphere of his moral choice. For he knows well that if he tries to avoid anything outside his own control, he will inevitably clash with something contrary to his wishes, and he will suffer. But if virtue promises happiness, freedom from passion, and a good life, then surely progress toward virtue is nothing other than progress toward these very states. For wherever the perfection of a thing tends, there also must the progress toward it tend. How is it then that we agree on the nature of virtue, yet seek progress and display it in something entirely different? What is the work of virtue? It is to produce a life that flows smoothly. And who is the man making progress? Is it the one who has read many books of Chrysippus? If that were the case, then virtue would consist of nothing more than understanding Chrysippus. But if we admit that virtue is something else, then progress must also be something else. Look at me, one says. I can read Chrysippus by myself. By the gods, you are making progress. But in what? In grammar? In literacy? Progress indeed. Why do you mock the man? Why do you distract him from the awareness of his own misery? Will you not show him the true purpose of virtue, so that he may know where real progress lies? Seek it there, unfortunate man, where your true work lies. And where is that work? In desire and aversion, that you may not be disappointed in the one nor fall into the other. In impulse and repulsion, that you may not err. In assent and the suspension of judgment, that you may not be deceived. But the first and most necessary task is the training of desire. For if you wish to be faultless while you are still trembling and mourning, how can you be said to be making progress? Show me your progress then. If I were talking to an athlete and said, show me your shoulders, and he replied, look at my jumping weights, I would say to him, be gone with you and your weights. I do not want to see the equipment. I want to see the effect of the equipment. Take the treatise on impulse, you say, and see how well I have read it. Slave, that is not what I am looking for. I want to see how you exercise impulse and repulsion, how you manage your desires and aversions. I want to see how you purpose, how you prepare, how you act, whether in harmony with nature or against it. If you are acting in accordance with nature, show me that, and I will say you are making progress. But if not, begone and write books yourself instead of just commenting on others. And what good will it do you? You know that a whole book sells for 5 denarii. Is the commentator then worth more than 5 denarii? Do not look for your work in one place and your progress in another. Where is true progress? If any one of you withdraws from external things and turns his attention to his own moral choice, cultivating it, perfecting it, making it consonant with nature, so that it becomes elevated, free, unhindered, untroubled, faithful, and honorable, if he has learned that he who desires or fears things not in his power can be neither faithful nor free, but must inevitably shift and fluctuate with them, becoming subject to those who control such things. If from the moment he rises in the morning he observes these rules, bathing as a man of fidelity, eating as a man of honor, applying his principles in every matter, just as the runner applies the principles of running, and the singer those of voice training, this is the man who is truly making progress. This is the man who has not traveled in vain. But if he is wholly intent on reading books and labors only at that, and has traveled for that purpose, I tell him to go back home immediately and attend to his business there. For the goal he has set out for is nothing. The true goal is this: to practice removing from one's life all sorrows, lamentations, and cries of alas and woe is me, to remove misfortune and disappointment, and to learn what death is, and exile, and prison, and hemlock. It is to be able to say in prison, Dear Crito, if it pleases the gods, so be it, rather than, Poor me, an old man, is it for this that I have lived so many years? Who speaks those words of misery? Do you think I will name a humble man, a nobody? Does not Priam say it? Does not Oedipus say it? Do not all kings say it? For what are tragedies but the portrayal of the sufferings of men who have admired external things, displayed in standard versification? If I had to be deceived into believing that external things and things outside my power are nothing to me, I would willingly consent to that deception, if it meant I could live a life of serenity and freedom from trouble. Whatever you prefer, you will see for yourself. What then does Chrysippus offer us? To ensure, he says, that these truths which bring serenity and a smooth flow of life are not false, take my books, and you will see how true and conformable to nature these things are. Great good fortune, a great benefactor. We set up altars to Triptolemus because he gave us the art of farming, but the man who found the truth, who brought it to light and made it available to all, not the truth about how to live, but how to live well, do you not build an altar to him? Do you not worship him? You sacrifice to the gods because they gave you grain and wine. But because they have produced such fruit in the human mind, by which they show us the true way to happiness, will you not give thanks to them for that? Book 1, Chapter 5, Against the Academics. If a man deliberately hardens himself against evident truths, making a rigid resolve not to assent to what is clearly manifest, the art of reasoning becomes powerless to help him. This is not a failure of the argument, but a defect in the listener. When we find ourselves unable to move a man by reason, we may think it is due to our own lack of strength, but in truth, it is because he has undergone a petrification of the intellect. There are two kinds of petrification. The first is a hardening of the understanding, where a man refuses to accept what is self-evident. The second is a hardening of the sense of shame, where a man sees the truth but stubbornly refuses to acknowledge it. We dread the necrosis of the body, rushing to the physician if we fear a limb is dying, yet we are utterly indifferent to the necrosis of the soul. If a man's modest and sociable nature is deadened, we call him strong-minded. If his ability to distinguish between the true and the false is severed, we do not see it as a loss. Consider the man who argues against his own senses. I do not know, he says, whether sensation is false or true, or he asserts, I am not sure if I am awake or sleeping. Is there truly no difference between the two states? None, he replies. The dream I have when I sleep feels exactly like the reality I perceive now. And do they resemble each other in every respect? Yes. What is one to say to such a man? He has eyes, but he chooses not to see. He has ears, but he will not hear. He is a man of dual nature, yet he has amputated the very faculty that makes him human. We are eager to preserve our physical sight, but this man has willingly blinded his mind. He has cast away his reason and his senses, yet he still thinks himself a philosopher. Worse still is the man who has lost his sense of shame. He admits the arguments are logical, he recognizes the conclusion is inevitable, yet he has the audacity to say, I will not accept it. This is not merely weakness, it is a kind of madness. It is the brazenness of a man who has cut out the part of his soul that feels disgrace. We may call such a man unshakable, but it is the unshakability of a corpse or of a stone. Why should I argue with him? Can you reason with a man who denies the daylight while the sun is shining? It is a waste of time. He has severed the nerves of his own understanding. Book 1, Chapter 6, On Providence. It is a simple matter to praise Providence for everything that occurs in the world, provided a man possesses within himself two essential qualities, a faculty for seeing the comprehensive nature of things and a sense of gratitude. If he lacks the first, he will fail to perceive the utility of what happens. If he lacks the second, he may see it, but he will not give thanks. Consider the nature of vision. If God had created colors but had not created the faculty of sight, of what use would those colors be? None whatsoever. And if he had created the faculty of sight but had not created objects capable of being seen, what then? Again, it would be useless. And even if both of these existed, the eye and the object, but light had not been made, they would still be of no purpose. Who is it then that has fitted this to that and that to this? Who fitted the sword to the scabbard and the scabbard to the sword? Is there no one? Usually when we see a manufactured object where the parts fit together in harmony, we exclaim that this is the work of a craftsman, that it did not come about by random chance. Does this great fitting of the eye to the light and the light to the eye proclaim no craftsman? And what of the male and the female, and the desire implanted in each for union, and the organs designed to facilitate that union? Do these not cry out the name of their author? But let us go deeper. Consider the constitution of the intellect. We do not merely receive impressions of sensible objects as wax receives a seal. We select from them, we add to them, we subtract from them, we combine them. We pass from one thing to another by the laws of logic. Is this too accidental? Let those who deny a creator explain to us how such a marvelous and craftsman-like apparatus could have arisen from the chaotic collision of atoms. But, you say, are not these physical traits found in other animals as well? Indeed, many are, for the animals too have need of them. But there is a difference. They use impressions. We understand the use of impressions. That is the great divide. For the beast, it is enough to eat, to drink, to sleep, and to breed. But for you, endowed with the faculty of understanding, these things are not enough. Unless you act with propriety, with method, and in conformity with your specific nature, you will fail to achieve your end. God constituted one animal to be eaten, another to serve in the fields, another to produce cheese. To fulfill these functions, they have no need of the ability to understand and interpret impressions. But he brought man into the world to be a spectator of himself and his works, and not merely a spectator, but an interpreter. It is shameful, therefore, for a man to begin and end his life exactly where the irrational animals do. He may begin there, but he must end where nature has fixed his proper goal, in contemplation, in understanding, and in a way of life that harmonizes with nature. Take care, then, that you do not die without ever having seen the spectacle. You journey to Olympia to see the statue of Zeus by Phidias, and you consider it a misfortune to die without having beheld such a masterpiece. Yet, here is the true Zeus, present in his works, right before your eyes. You have no need to travel. He is here. Will you not desire to see and understand? Will you never perceive who you are, what you were born for, and what purpose this vision was given to serve? But, you object, there are unpleasant and difficult things in life. And are there none at Olympia? Do you not bake in the heat? Are you not crushed by the crowd? Is it not difficult to find a bath? Are you not soaked when it rains? Are you not deafened by the shouting? Yet, I imagine when you weigh these hardships against the value of the spectacle, you bear them. Have you not received faculties that enable you to endure whatever comes to pass? Have you not received greatness of soul? Have you not received courage? Have you not received endurance? If I possess greatness of soul, what is it to me if the heavens fall? What can disturb me? What can confuse me? Shall I possess this power and not use it? Shall I groan and moan at events instead of applying my faculties to the ends for which they were given? But my nose is running. Then wipe it. What do you have hands for, slave? Is it not to wipe your nose? But is it reasonable that there should be running noses in the world? How much better it is to wipe your nose than to find fault with the universe. What do you think would have become of Hercules if there had been no lion, no hydra, no stag, no boar, and no savage criminals to rid the world of? If he had sat at home, wrapped in bedclothes, snoring his life away in luxury and ease, he would never have been Hercules. He would have been a nobody, and even if he had possessed the strength, of what use would it have been without the trials to exercise it? Should he, then, have created these monsters for himself? Should he have sought to introduce a lion or a boar into his country just to have the chance to fight it? That would have been madness. But since they were there, since they were found, they served a purpose. They revealed and exercised Hercules. So it is with you. Do not seek out monsters, but when difficulty arises, look to your own faculties. Say to God, "Bring what challenge you will, O Zeus, for I have an equipment given to me by you, and resources sufficient to distinguish myself and turn every event to honor." But no, you sit trembling, fearful of what might happen, lamenting and grieving over what is happening already, and then you blame the gods. For what is the fruit of such meanness of spirit but impiety? Yet God has not merely given us these faculties to bear whatever happens. He has done something even greater, something fitting of a king and a father. He has given them to us free from all restraint, free from compulsion, free from hindrance. He has placed the whole matter entirely in our own hands, so that not even He Himself has the power to prevent or hinder us. Possessing such free and unhindered faculties, why do you not use them? Why do you not look at what you have and from whom you received it? Why do you sit crying and complaining? Some of you are blind to the giver, and do not acknowledge your benefactor. Others, in their baseness, turn to complaints and accusations against God. I am prepared to show you that you have the resources for greatness of soul and a courageous spirit. Can you show me what resources you have for complaining and finding fault? Book 1, Chapter 7. On the utility of changing arguments, hypothetical arguments, and the like. It is a common error to suppose that the study of complex logical forms, changing arguments, hypothetical arguments, and those that conclude by way of questioning, is a matter of mere academic display, irrelevant to the conduct of a good life. Most men do not see that these studies have a direct bearing on the proper function of the moral will. For what is our aim? Is it not to discover how the good man will behave and how he will acquit himself correctly in every situation? If this is so, then one must answer a simple question. Will the good man essentially refuse to engage in question and answer? Will he say, "I am above such things"? If he does engage, will he be indifferent to whether he answers carelessly or at random? If we cannot accept that the good man would be negligent in any of his actions, then we must concede that he, above all others, must be skilled in the very topics with which question and answer are concerned. Consider what the faculty of reason purports to do. Its nature is to establish what is true, to eliminate what is false, and to suspend judgment about what is doubtful. Is it enough, then, merely to learn this definition? It is enough, one says. Is it enough then, if you wish to avoid being cheated in the marketplace, merely to be told, accept genuine drachmas and reject counterfeit ones? It is not enough. What else is necessary? Clearly, you must possess the faculty of testing and distinguishing the genuine coin from the fake. It is not the command that saves you, but the skill. So too, in the case of reason, it is not enough to hear the command, distinguish the true from the false. One must acquire the specific faculty of testing and distinguishing them. And what else does reason profess? To accept the consequences of what has been rightly granted. Is it enough to know this rule? No, one must learn explicitly how one thing follows from another, and how sometimes a conclusion results from a single premise, and sometimes from the combination of several. This skill must be acquired by the man who intends to acquit himself intelligently in matters of reason. He must be able to define and demonstrate every point himself, and he must be able to follow the demonstrations of others without being misled. He must not be like a child led astray by sophisms, accepting as proof what is merely a trick of words. Thus, there has developed among us the study of conclusive arguments and logical figures, and this study is not a luxury. It is a necessity. But the matter does not end with simple syllogisms. There are cases where we have rightly granted the premises and a conclusion results which, though logically valid, is materially false. What then is it appropriate for me to do? Must I accept the falsehood? I cannot. Must I say I erred in granting the premises? That is not permitted. Must I say that the conclusion does not follow? But this too is forbidden by the laws of logic. What must be done in such a case? Consider the analogy of a debt. It is not enough to have borrowed money to establish that you are still in debt. You must still stand by the loan, and it must not have been repaid. So it is in argument. It is not enough to have granted the premises to establish that we must accept the conclusion. We must continue to stand by the premises. If the premises remain as they were when we granted them, then we are under absolute necessity to abide by our concession and accept the consequences. But if they do not remain as they were, if they have changed, as in the changing arguments where the truth value shifts with time, then we are not bound. We can refuse the conclusion because the premises to which we originally assented are no longer the same. We ought, therefore, to study these logical subtleties to understand how premises undergo changes and alterations during the very process of questioning and answering. If we do not, we will be like uneducated men who become confused and flustered because they do not see the chain of consequence. We study these things for one reason only, so that in this matter of our own reason we do not behave in a haphazard, chaotic, or inappropriate manner. The same applies to hypotheses and hypothetical arguments. It is often necessary to posit a hypothesis as a basis for argument. But should we grant every hypothesis that is proposed? Surely not. If not every one, then which ones? And once we have admitted a hypothesis, must we abide by it come what may, or should we sometimes repudiate it? Must we accept what is consistent with it, and reject what conflicts? Yes, you say. But what if a skilled dialectician says, I will make you accept a hypothesis of something possible, and from it I will lead you to an impossibility? Will the wise man refuse to engage with such a person? Will he avoid all examination and discussion? But who is more adept in argument than the wise man? Who is more expert in question and answer? Who is more proof against sophistry? Will he then engage, but take no thought for how he conducts himself, answering recklessly and at random? If he does so, how can he be the man we imagine him to be? But if he is to avoid such carelessness, he must have the training and preparation to maintain coherence in argument. If someone can show us that the wise man can maintain this coherence without such training, then all these logical studies are superfluous. But if not, they are essential. Why then are we still lazy, indifferent, and dull? Why do we look for excuses to avoid this toil? Why, you ask, does it matter? If I err in such matters, I haven't killed my father, have I? Slave, there was no father there for you to kill. What did you do? You committed the only error that was possible in the situation. You failed in the use of your reason. I once made this same excuse to Musonius Rufus when he reproached me for failing to discover the omission in a syllogism. I said, "It is not as if I had burned down the Capitol." And he smiled and said, "Slave, the omission here is the Capitol." Are these the only crimes? Burning the Capitol and killing your father? To use one's impressions recklessly, to act carelessly and at random, to fail to distinguish between valid proof and fallacy, is there no error in this? Is there no blame in handling the supreme faculty of the human soul with the clumsiness of a brute? The error may not be written in blood, but it is written in the degradation of your own character. Book 1, Chapter 8. That capacities are treacherous for the uneducated. In the same way that interchangeable terms can be varied and substituted for one another in speech, so too can the forms of varying arguments and enthymemes be altered and manipulated. A man might say, if you borrowed money and did not repay it, you owe me the money, or he might phrase it differently. It is not the case that you borrowed and did not repay and yet do not owe me the money. This is the art of the dialectician, the skill of turning an argument this way and that without losing the thread of truth. And indeed, no one should be more capable of this agility than the philosopher, for the enthymeme is but an incomplete syllogism, and surely he who has been trained in the complete syllogism must be no less adept in the incomplete one. Why then do we not exercise ourselves in these subtleties? Why do we not spend our days training each other in the variation of arguments? Because even now, when we are not absorbed in these matters, when we are not, at least by me, distracted from the study of morals, we still make no progress toward the beautiful and the good. We are still entangled in our passions, still slaves to our desires. What then must we expect if we add this additional burden to our work? It would not merely be a distraction from the necessary business of life, it would be a seedbed of vanity and conceit. For the power of proof and persuasion is a great and seductive thing. When it is accompanied by technical training and a certain elegance of language, it becomes a tyrant over the weak mind. In general, every capacity, when acquired by those who are uneducated and weak in character, carries with it the danger of making them arrogant and puffed up. They become intoxicated with their own cleverness. For by what method can one approach a young man who excels in these rhetorical arts and persuade him that he must not become a slave to his own talent? How can he be made to see that he should not become an appendage to his eloquence, but rather that his eloquence should serve him? He will not listen. He will trample upon all such advice. He will strut before us, elated and swollen with pride, unable to endure the slightest criticism. If anyone attempts to take hold of him and remind him of what he has abandoned, the care of his soul, the governance of his will, he will turn away in disdain. He will assert his superiority based on the very thing that has enslaved him. But was not Plato a philosopher, you ask? And did he not write with beauty and elegance? Yes, and was not Hippocrates a physician? And did he not also express himself with great skill? But was it in respect of his being a physician that Hippocrates wrote so well? Or was it merely an incidental quality? Why do you confuse things that are distinct? Why do you mingle qualities that are merely united by accident in the same person? If Plato was handsome and strong, must I also sit and strive to become handsome and strong, as if this were necessary for philosophy? Must I believe that, because a certain philosopher was at the same time handsome, that beauty and philosophy are one and the same? Will you not distinguish? Will you not see what makes men philosophers and what qualities belong to them only incidentally? If I were a philosopher and happened to be lame, would you then feel compelled to lame yourself in order to be like me? Do I then despise these faculties? Do I cast aside the power of speaking or the power of reasoning? Heaven forbid, I do not despise the faculty of sight either. But if you ask me what is the good of man, I cannot answer that it lies in speaking well, or in seeing clearly, or in reasoning subtly. I can tell you only this. The good of man lies in a moral character of a certain kind, a will that is set in harmony with nature, free, noble, and unhindered. Book 1, Chapter 9. How, from the fact that we are akin to God, should one proceed to the consequences? If the statements made by philosophers regarding the kinship between God and man are true, what other course remains for men but to follow the example of Socrates? When asked where he was from, he never replied, "I am an Athenian," or "I am a Corinthian," but always, "I am a citizen of the world." Why would he say this? Consider a man who limits his identity to a small patch of earth. He defines himself by the particular laws, the local customs, and the narrow borders of a single city. But surely he who has intelligently observed the administration of the world knows that the greatest and most sovereign of all states is the system composed of men and God. From this universal city, the seeds of being have fallen, not only upon his father and grandfather, but upon all things that are generated and grow on the earth, and most especially upon rational beings. For rational beings are entitled by nature to a unique communion with God. They alone are linked to him through the bond of reason. If a man could fully grasp this truth, that he is a citizen of the universe and a son of God, I do not believe he would ever think meanly or ignobly of himself. Yet look at how we behave. If Caesar were to adopt you, your arrogance would be unbearable. You would walk with your head high, fearing no one, confident in your imperial protection. But you are the son of Zeus. Why does this not elate you? Why do you tremble? The reason is that we are creatures of two natures. We have a body, which is common to the animals, and we have reason and intelligence, which are common to the gods. Most of us incline toward the former, toward that wretched and unhappy kinship with the dead flesh. Only a few turn their eyes toward the divine, because every man must necessarily treat things according to his beliefs about them. Those few who know they are born for fidelity and honor never entertain a lowly thought about themselves. But the multitude, they cry out, "What will I eat? What will I wear? How will I survive? If I do not have money," you say, "I shall starve." Listen to yourself. You're afraid of starving, but consider the animals. Does the dog fear hunger? Does the horse? Do the birds? They have no fields, no granaries, no storehouses, yet they are fed. They survive by the providence of nature. Do you think you are of less value than a quail or a stork? They have only their wings and their instincts. You have reason. You have the ability to understand the administration of the world, and yet you despair. Imagine a man who has a wealthy and powerful patron in Rome. He feels safe. He travels through the wildest forests and the most dangerous roads without fear because he knows he has the protection of Caesar. And you? You have the maker of all things as your father and protector. Is he not enough to deliver you from fear? But if I am a philosopher, you argue, I must still eat. And so you shall. But if the time comes when you cannot eat, what does it mean? It means simply that God, like a good general, has sounded the retreat. He is telling you, the play is over, come away. You go, not in despair, but in obedience. You go knowing that you have played your part. But while you remain, do not complain. Do not act like a cowardly soldier who grumbles at his commander. If you have nothing, you still have your reason. Can you not find a way to be useful? Can you not draw water? Can you not carry burdens? But I want to sit on a throne, you say. I want to be a senator. Ah, there is the rub. You do not merely want to live, you want to live in luxury. You are not afraid of starving, you are afraid of not being pampered. This is why you tremble before tyrants. This is why you flatter the wealthy. You are a slave to your own desires. I knew an old man once, a philosopher who was facing exile and poverty. A young student came to him weeping and said, "Master, you will starve." The old man smiled. "Will I?" he asked. "Does God provide for the worms in the earth and the beetles in the dung, and yet he will neglect a man who strives to be like him?" If you truly believed in your kinship with the divine, you would never worry about what you will eat tomorrow. You would know that if you are meant to live, the means will be provided. And if they are not provided, it is a signal that you are not meant to live. The door is open. Do not be a coward. Do not stay in the smoke if you cannot bear it. But as long as you stay, behave like a free man, not a slave. Think of the prisoner who is allowed to walk in the prison yard. He is happy for a moment, but then he remembers the walls and the chains, and he weeps. But you are a citizen of the world. The whole earth is your home. Why do you act as if you are in prison? Why do you confine yourself with your own fears? If you must beg, beg with dignity. If you must work, work with honor. But never, never let the fear of poverty drag you down into the mire of baseness. Remember who you are. Remember your Father. Book 1, Chapter 10. To those who have applied themselves to advancement at Rome. If we were as industrious about our own proper business as the old men in Rome are about the business of the state, we would perhaps accomplish something worthy of our nature. I know a man, older than myself, who serves as a superintendent of the grain supply in Rome, when he passed through this place on his return from exile. Imagine what he said to me. He spoke with the fervor of a convert. "If I return safely to Rome," he declared, "I swear by all the gods that I will devote my remaining years to nothing but peace and tranquility. I will sit in retirement, tending to my soul, for how little life remains to me." I looked at him and said, "You will not do it. The moment you smell the scent of Rome, you will forget everything. And if mere admission to the imperial palace is granted to you, you will rush in, headlong and delighted, crying out thanks to the gods." "Epictetus," he replied, "if you ever find me putting one foot inside the court, believe of me whatever you wish." And so he went. But what happened? Before he had even entered the city proper, letters from Caesar met him, and as soon as he received them, all his resolutions vanished. He forgot his vows of retirement. He forgot his desire for tranquility. He began to pile one ambition upon another. Now I hear he is in a position of high authority, weighed down by responsibilities. I can only imagine how he suffers now, groaning in the night, crying out, "Miserable wretch that I am! For a little honor, for a title, I have sold my peace." I can see him now, comparing his current life with his days in exile. Then, he surely thinks, I had time, I could sleep, I could walk where I pleased. I was master of my own day. Now I am a slave to petitions, to meetings, to the whims of the emperor. For there is a slavery that wears chains of iron, and there is a slavery that wears chains of gold. The man who is dragged by his ambition is no freer than the man dragged by a guard. Consider the effort these men expend. They wake before dawn to attend the morning levees. They kiss the hands of powerful men. They endure insults from doorkeepers. They scramble for invitations to dinner. And for what? To be able to say, I am a friend of Caesar. To have a lictor walk before them clearing the way. Is it not shameful that we, who have a much greater work, are so lazy? Their business is to acquire wealth and power. Ours is to acquire a free and unhindered will. Their task is to please a mortal man. Ours is to please God. And yet, look at the difference in our diligence. Imagine if you took the same pains to tend to your own ruling faculty as they do to tend to their careers. What if, when you rose in the morning, your first thought was not, who must I flatter today? But, what do I lack in freedom from passion? What do I lack in serenity? Who am I? Am I a mere body, a collection of bones and sinews? Or am I something else? If you realized you are a rational being, you would ask yourself, what are the demands of a rational being? And you would answer, to treat nothing as my own that is not my own, to lay claim to nothing that belongs to another. But what, you say, I must attend to my duties. What duties? The duty to be anxious? The duty to be envious? The duty to fear that Caesar might frown upon you? I tell you, if you were to apply yourself to philosophy with half the zeal that these men apply to their ambitions, you would see a change in yourself that would astonish you. But as it is, we are content to be philosophers in word only, and not in deed. We learn the definitions, we can recite the arguments. This is a valid syllogism, we say. This is a fallacy. But when the crisis comes, when death looms, or exile, or the loss of money, where is the philosopher then? He is gone. In his place is a trembling child. The man in Rome toils for a happiness that is fragile and fleeting. He builds his house on the edge of a cliff. One gust of wind, one change in the emperor's mood, and it all falls into the sea. But the work you are called to do is to build a fortress that no wind can shake, no tyrant can breach. It is the fortress of a mind that has learned to desire only what is in its power to achieve. Why are we so slack? Why are we so easily distracted? It is because we do not truly believe in the value of what we are doing. If a man believes that gold is the greatest good, he will dig for it with bleeding hands. If he believes that political office is the highest honor, he will suffer any indignity to obtain it. But we say that virtue is the only good, yet we act as if it were a hobby, a pastime to be indulged in when we have nothing better to do. It is time to wake up. It is time to look at the men of Rome and learn from them, not their ambition, but their intensity. If they can work so hard for a master who can kill them, surely we can work a little for a master who wishes only to set us free. Book 1, Chapter 11. Of Family Affection. A magistrate once came to visit Epictetus, and the philosopher, engaging him in conversation, inquired about his particulars. He asked if the man had a wife and children. "I do," the magistrate replied. "And how do you find family life?" Epictetus asked. "Miserable," the man confessed. "How so?" asked Epictetus. "For surely men do not marry and bring children into the world to be miserable, but rather to be happy." "I am so wretched regarding my poor children," the man explained, "that recently, when my little daughter was sick and appeared to be in danger, I could not bear even to stay by her sickbed. I had to run away and leave her until someone brought me word that she had recovered." "Well," said Epictetus, "do you think you acted correctly in this matter?" "I acted naturally," the man said. "If you can convince me that you acted naturally," Epictetus replied, "then I will convince you that everything that happens in accordance with nature happens rightly." "This is how all fathers feel," the man protested, "or at least most of us." "I do not deny that it happens," Epictetus said. "The question between us is whether it is right. For by your reasoning, we should have to say that tumors are good for the body because they happen, and that doing wrong is natural because almost all of us, or at least the majority, do wrong. So show me exactly how this behavior is in accordance with nature." "I cannot," the man admitted. "Why don't you show me instead how it is not natural and not right?" Epictetus answered him, "If we were disputing about black and white, what criterion would we call upon to distinguish between them? The faculty of sight, the man said. And if the dispute were about things hot and cold or hard and soft? The faculty of touch. Very well. Now, since we are disputing about what is in accordance with nature and what is right or wrong, what criterion should we use? I do not know, the man said. It is perhaps no great harm not to know the criterion for colors or smells, Epictetus observed. But to be ignorant of the criterion for good and evil and for what is natural and unnatural for man, is that a small error? No, it is the greatest error. Tell me then, Epictetus continued, is everything that people judge to be good and proper actually so? Can all the opinions held by Jews, Syrians, Egyptians, and Romans concerning food be right? How could they be? If the opinions of the Egyptians are right, then necessarily those of the others are wrong, and if the Jews are right, the others are not. Certainly. And where there is ignorance, there is a lack of understanding and instruction in essential matters, the man agreed. You then, said Epictetus, knowing this, will henceforth apply your mind to nothing else but finding the criterion of what is in accordance with nature and using it to judge particular cases. But for the present, I can help you this much. Does family affection seem to you to be natural and good? Of course. And is it possible that family affection is good and natural, while that which is rational is not good? By no means. So there is no conflict between the rational and the affectionate? I think not. Indeed, Epictetus said, for if they conflicted, one would be natural and the other unnatural. But if we find something to be both affectionate and rational, we may confidently declare it to be right and good. Agreed. Now, let us look at your action, Epictetus said. You left your child when she was sick. To run away and leave her is certainly not a rational act. It remains for us to see if it was affectionate. Let us consider it. Did you, as the father, have affection for the child? I did. And the mother, does she have no affection for her own child? She certainly does. Should the mother then also have left her? She should not. And the nurse, does she love the child? She does. Should she then also have left her? By no means. And the child's attendant, does he not love her? He does. Should he too have deserted her? And so, because of this great affection of yours, and the mother and these others, should the child have been left completely alone and helpless, to die in the hands of those who neither loved nor cared for her? God forbid! Yet surely it is unfair and unreasonable to say that those who love the child as much as you do should not be allowed to do what you claim was the affectionate thing for you to do. It is strange, the man admitted. Consider this, Epictetus went on. If you were sick, would you want your family, your wife, your children, your relations, to show their affection by leaving you alone and deserted? By no means. Would you pray to be loved by your enemies in such a way that they would leave you alone? If that is affection, it follows that your behavior was not affectionate at all. What was it then, Epictetus asked, that moved you to desert your child? It was not affection. It was the same thing that moved a man at Rome to cover his head while his favorite horse was running, and when the horse won, they had to use sponges to revive the man from his faint. What is the cause of such behavior? I do not know. It is nothing external. We must not look for the cause anywhere outside ourselves. It is the same thing that causes us to do or not do anything, to speak or be silent, to be elated or depressed. It is simply our judgment, our opinion about what is right. Is it really so? What else? Epictetus said. If you had judged differently, you would have acted differently. This was the cause of Achilles' lamentation, not the death of Patroclus, for other men do not act so when a friend dies, but his own judgment that such grief was right. And so it was your judgment that it was right to flee that caused you to flee. If you had stayed, it would have been because you judged it right to stay. In a word, Epictetus concluded, it is not death or exile or pain that causes us to act, but our opinions about these things. Do I convince you? You convince me, the man said. Then from this day forward, Epictetus said, we shall ascribe our actions to no other cause but the opinions we hold. We shall not blame our servants, our neighbors, our wives, or our children as the authors of our evils. We are the masters of our own judgments, and it is our judgments that make things appear to us as they do. That is true. So we must turn our attention to our opinions. We must excise the false ones like tumors from the body. You must become a student again, however much men may mock you, if you wish to examine your own mind. And as you know, that is not the work of a single hour. Book 1, Chapter 12. On Satisfaction. Regarding the gods, there are 5 distinct opinions held by men. The first group, the atheists, declare that the divine does not exist at all. The second group admits that God exists, but claims he is inactive, indifferent, and takes no thought for anything. A third group asserts that God exists and provides for the world, but only for the great heavenly bodies, not for affairs on earth. A fourth group allows that God cares for earthly and human affairs, but only in a general sense, not for the individual. And then there is the fifth group, to which Odysseus and Socrates belong, who say to God, "I cannot make a single move without you seeing it." Before we can act, we must determine which of these views is sound. For if the gods do not exist, how can it be our goal to follow them? If they exist but care for nothing, how is following them a sound objective? And if they care but have no communication with men, and specifically with me, how can I follow a guide who is unaware of my existence? The educated man, therefore, having examined these matters, submits his will to the administrator of the universe, just as a good citizen submits to the laws of the state. He comes to the school of philosophy with this specific aim: how may I follow the gods in all things? How may I be satisfied with the divine administration? How may I become free? For true freedom belongs only to the man who finds that every event happens in accordance with his own choice, and whom no one can hinder. But is freedom then madness, you ask? Far from it. Madness and freedom are incompatible. But, you say, I want everything to happen exactly as I wish, no matter how that wish arises. You are mad. You are raving. Do you not know that freedom is a noble and precious thing? To desire randomly that things should happen just because you randomly wish them so is not noble. It is the most shameful of all things. Consider how we proceed in the arts. When I write the name Dio, do I desire to write the letters however I please? No, I am taught to desire to write them as they ought to be written. It is the same in music. If it were otherwise, if knowledge bent to every whim of the student, who would bother to learn anything? Is it only in the greatest and most important matter, the art of living and being free, that I am permitted to desire at random? By no means. Education is precisely this, learning to wish for things exactly as they happen. And how do they happen? They happen as the ordainer has ordained. He has decreed that there be summer and winter, abundance and scarcity, virtue and vice, and all such opposites for the harmony of the whole. To each of us, he has given a body, possessions, and companions. We must enter the world accepting these conditions. We should not wish to change the hypothesis of the game, for that is not in our power, but to play our hand well in harmony with the things that are. We cannot escape from mankind, and since we must associate with them, and since we cannot change them, for who gave us that power? What remains? We must find a method of dealing with them so that, however they act, we remain in harmony with nature. But you are impatient. If you are alone, you cry, desolation. If you are in a crowd, you cry, mob, nuisance. You find fault with your parents, your children, your neighbors. You should instead reverence the moment. When you are alone, call it tranquility and freedom, and liken yourself to the gods. When you are in a large group, do not call it a mob or a tumult, but a feast and a festival, and accept it with gratitude. What is the punishment for those who do not accept it, to be exactly as they are? Is a man dissatisfied with being alone? Let him remain in his desolation. Is he dissatisfied with his parents? Let him be a bad son and suffer the misery of complaint. Throw him into prison, you say. What prison? He is already there. For a man is in prison whenever he is in a situation against his will. Socrates was not in prison, for he was there willingly. But my leg is crippled. Slave, do you find fault with the universe because of one wretched leg? Will you not surrender it to the whole? Will you not withdraw your petty complaint? Will you not gladly return it to the giver? Are you angry with Zeus because of the body you inhabit? Do you not know how small a part you are in relation to the whole? I speak of your body, for as regards your reason, you are not inferior to the gods, nor less than they. The greatness of reason is not measured by length or height, but by the quality of its judgments. Will you not, then, place your good in that which makes you equal to the gods? But my father and mother are terrible. What of it? Was it given to you to choose your parents? Did you stand before birth saying, Let this man associate with this woman so that I may be born? It was not given. Your parents existed first, and you were born of them, but they are bad. Does nature provide a remedy? If you have sight, and you close your eyes when colors are presented, you are wretched. But you have greatness of soul and nobility to deal with difficult parents. If you do not use these faculties, are you not even more wretched? The gods have released you from accountability for your parents, your brothers, your body, and your estate. They have made you responsible for one thing alone, the only thing in your power, the proper use of your impressions. Why do you draw burdens upon yourself that do not belong to you? You create your own trouble. Book 1, Chapter 13. How each thing may be done in a manner pleasing to the gods. When someone asked Epictetus how it was possible to eat in a manner pleasing to the gods, he replied, "If you eat justly and with a dignified temper and with restraint and with self-control, is that not pleasing to the gods? Consider the daily vexations. You call for warm water and the slave does not answer, or he answers but brings tepid water, or perhaps he is not even found in the house. To refrain from anger in such a moment and not to explode, is this not pleasing to the gods? But how can one bear such people, you ask? Slave, will you not bear with your own brother? He has Zeus for his ancestor. He is a son from the same distinct seed as you, and of the same high descent. Or do you think that because you have been placed in a station of authority, you have the right to set yourself up as a tyrant? Do you not remember who you are and whom you rule? They are your kinsmen, your brothers by nature, the offspring of Zeus. But I have a bill of sale for them, you cry, and they have none for me. Do you not see where your eyes are fixed? You are looking at the earth, at the pit, and at the wretched laws of the dead. You are not looking at the laws of the gods. Book 1, Chapter 14. That the deity oversees all men. When a visitor asked how a man might be truly convinced that every one of his actions is performed under the eye of God, Epictetus did not answer with a simple assertion of faith. Instead, he began with the fundamental structure of the universe. Do you not believe, he asked, that all things are united in one single system? I do, the man replied. And do you not believe that earthly things feel the influence of that which is in heaven? I do. Consider the evidence, Epictetus continued. How else do we account for the regularity of nature? When God commands the plants to flower, they flower. When he commands them to shoot, they shoot. When he bids them bear fruit, they bear fruit. And when to ripen, they ripen. And again, when he bids them drop their fruit, shed their leaves, and withdraw into themselves to rest, they remain still and quiet. How is it that at the waxing and waning of the moon, and at the approach and recession of the sun, we see such a vast alteration and change in earthly things to the very opposite of their former states? If the plants and our own bodies are so intimately bound up with the universe, sharing in its rhythms and affections, is it not far more true of our souls? For our souls are not merely influenced by God, they are bound to him. They are joined to him. They are in truth parts and fragments of his own being. If this is so, does not God perceive their every movement as a movement of that which is his own and connate with himself? Consider your own capacity. You are able to think about the divine administration and about each divine thing, and at the same time about human affairs. You have the faculty of being moved by thousands of matters simultaneously, by what you see, by what you hear, by what you think. You assent to some things, you dissent from others, and you suspend judgment on the rest. You preserve in your soul a myriad of impressions derived from countless objects, and when your mind is stirred by them, it moves to the memories and arts that correspond to those impressions. If you, a man, can contain such a multitude of images and thoughts, is God not able to oversee all things, to be present with all things, and to maintain a certain communication with them all? The sun is capable of illuminating a vast portion of the universe, leaving in darkness only that small shadow cast by the earth. Is God, who created the sun, which is but a small portion of himself compared to the whole, is he not able to perceive all things? But, someone objects, I cannot follow all these things at one and the same time. Who told you that you possessed a faculty equal to that of Zeus? Epictetus replied. Nevertheless, he has not left you alone. He has stationed by each man's side a guardian, his particular daimon, and has committed the man to its care. This is a guardian who never sleeps, a guardian who cannot be deceived. For to what better or more careful watcher could he have entrusted you? Therefore, when you close your doors and make darkness within, remember never to say that you are alone. You are not alone. God is within, and your own daemon is within. And what need have they of light to see what you are doing? It is to this God that you ought to swear allegiance, just as soldiers swear to Caesar. For they, receiving a wage, swear to put the safety of Caesar before all else. And you, who have been counted worthy of blessings so numerous and so great, will you not swear? Or having sworn, will you not abide by your oath? And what is the nature of this oath? It is a promise never to disobey, never to bring charges against the administration of the world, never to find fault with anything he has given, and never to endure what happens with anger or resentment. The soldier swears to prefer nothing above Caesar. You must swear to prefer yourself, your true rational self, above all else. Book 1, Chapter 15. What Philosophy Professes. A man once consulted Epictetus on a matter of family strife. "How," he asked, "can I persuade my brother to be angry with me no longer?" Epictetus replied, "Philosophy does not promise to secure for a man any external thing. If it did, it would be taking on a task outside its proper subject matter. The carpenter's material is wood, the sculptor's is bronze. The subject matter of the art of living is each person's own life." "But what about my brother's life?" the man asked. "That," said Epictetus, "belongs to his own art of living. To you, it is merely one of the externals, like a piece of land, or health, or reputation. Philosophy makes no promises regarding these things. Its promise is this: in every circumstance I will keep the ruling principle of my soul in accord with nature." "Whose ruling principle?" "His in whom I exist." "But," the man persisted, "how am I to keep my brother from being angry with me?" "Bring him to me, and I will speak to him," Epictetus said. "But to you I have nothing to say about his anger." The man, however, was still seeking a way to navigate the difficulty. "What I want to know," he said, "is how I can remain in accord with nature even if my brother refuses to be reconciled with me." Epictetus answered him with a metaphor of growth. "Nothing great comes into being suddenly," he said, "not even a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you say to me now, 'I want a fig,' I shall answer, 'That requires time.' Let the tree first blossom, then put forth its fruit, and finally let the fruit ripen. If the fruit of a fig tree is not brought to perfection suddenly or in a single hour, would you seek to possess the fruit of a man's mind in so short a time and with such ease? Do not expect it, even if I were to tell you it could be so. Book 1, Chapter 16. On Providence. Do not marvel that the beasts of the field have their necessities provided for them, ready at hand. They need not labor for food or drink, nor do they require a bed to sleep in, nor shoes, nor clothes. We, on the other hand, are burdened by the need for all these things. But consider the reason. These creatures were born not for their own sake, but for service. It would not be advantageous for the master if he had to worry about clothing and shoeing his sheep and his asses, or finding them food. Just as a commander appears before his soldiers who are already armed, clothed, and shod, for it would be a strange general indeed who had to go about equipping his regiment one by one, so nature has created the animals ready for use, needing no further attention. Thus it is that a single small child, armed only with a stick, can drive an entire flock. Yet we, who are the beneficiaries of this arrangement, neglect to give thanks. We complain to God about our own condition, forgetting that we have been spared the care of these servants. By Zeus and all the gods, a single fact of nature would suffice to make a reverent man perceive the hand of providence. Do not speak to me of great things. Consider only that milk is produced from grass, and cheese from milk, and wool from skin. Who is it that has conceived and made these things? No one, says the fool. Oh, the depth of such blindness and impudence! Let us look even at the secondary effects of nature. Is there anything more apparently useless than the hair on a man's chin? Yet has not nature used even this in the most becoming manner? Through it she has distinguished the male from the female. From a distance the nature of each cries out, I am a man. Approach me as such, speak to me as such, look for no other sign. In the case of women, nature has mingled a softer note in the voice and removed the hair from the chin. Would you have the human animal indistinguishable, so that each of us would have to announce, I am a man? How much fairer and more noble is this sign than the cock's comb or the lion's mane? We ought to preserve these signs of God, and not confuse the sexes which he has so clearly distinguished. Are these the only works of Providence? Nay, what language is adequate to praise them? If we had sense, we would do nothing else. In public, or in private, but sing hymns to God and rehearse his benefits. We should sing while we dig, while we plow, while we eat. Great is God, who has given us these instruments to work the earth. Great is God, who has given us hands, and a throat, and a belly, and the power to grow without knowing it, and to breathe while we sleep. But above all, we should sing the greatest and divinest hymn, that God has given us the power to understand these things and to use them methodically. Since most of you are blind to this duty, must there not be someone to fill this office and sing the hymn of praise on your behalf? What else can I do, a lame old man, but sing hymns to God? If I were a nightingale, I would do the part of a nightingale, if a swan, the part of a swan. But as it is, I am a rational being, and so I must praise God. This is my task. I do it, and I will not desert this post so long as it is given to me to hold. And I invite you all to join me in this same song. Book 1, Chapter 17, Concerning the Necessity of Logic. Since reason is the faculty that articulates and processes all other things, and since it should not itself remain unarticulated, by what means shall it be articulated? Obviously, it must be by itself or by something else. If by something else, that agent must be either reason or something superior to reason. If it is reason, then what will articulate it? Or if it articulates itself, then the first reason could have done the same. If we require yet another reason to articulate the second, the process will be endless. Yes, you say, but it is more important to tend to our passions and our opinions. So you want to hear about those things? Very well. But if you then say to me, I do not know whether your argument is sound or fallacious, or if I use a word ambiguously and you ask me to distinguish the meanings, I will have to say to you, no, the other matter is more important. This is why we place logic first. It is like the measuring of grain. Before we measure, we must inspect the measure itself. If we do not first determine what a bushel is or what a scale is, how shall we ever measure or weigh anything? So it is here. Unless we have apprehended and defined the very instrument by which we apprehend and judge everything else, how can we hope to achieve precision in any other matter? But, you object, a wooden bushel bowl bears no fruit. True, but it measures the grain. And matters of logic are fruitless. We shall see about that. But even if we grant it, is it not enough that logic has the power to examine and distinguish all other things and, as it were, to weigh and measure them? Who says this? Only Chrysippus and Zeno. Does not Antisthenes say it? And who wrote that the beginning of education is the examination of terms? Was it not Socrates? And does not Xenophon tell us that Socrates began precisely there with the definition of terms? Is the great and admirable thing, then, merely to understand Chrysippus? No, the admirable thing is to understand the will of nature. If you can understand it alone, you need no one else. But if you do not understand the will of nature, you look for an interpreter. People say, Chrysippus explains it. So you go to him. But you find you cannot understand what he says, so you seek someone to explain Chrysippus. There is nothing to be proud of in this. Even Chrysippus has no cause for pride if he only explains the will of nature but does not follow it. How much less the man who merely interprets Chrysippus? We do not need Chrysippus for his own sake, but only to help us understand nature. Just as we do not go to the diviner for his own sake, but because we think he can reveal the future and the signs of the gods. We do not admire the crow or the raven that gives the sign, but God who speaks through them. So I go to the diviner and say, examine the entrails for me. He spreads them out and says, man, you have a power of choice that is by nature incapable of being hindered or compelled. This is what is written here. He demonstrates this. Can anyone prevent you from assenting to the truth? No one. Can anyone force you to accept the false? No one. You see that in this sphere of assent, you are free. Is it any different with desire and impulse? What can overcome an impulse but another impulse? What can defeat a desire but another desire? But, you say, if someone threatens me with death, he compels me. No, it is not the threat that compels you, but your own decision that it is better to do such and such than to die. It is your own choice compelling your choice. For if God had so arranged the part of himself he gave to us that it could be hindered by another, he would not be God, nor would he be caring for us as he ought. This, says the diviner, is what I find in the victim's entrails. If you wish it, you are free. If you wish it, you will blame no one, you will accuse no one. Everything will happen in accordance with your own plan and God's. This is the prophecy I seek from the philosopher. Book 1, Chapter 18, that we should not be angry with wrongdoers. If what the philosophers say is true, that all men act from a single principle, asserting that which seems true to them and rejecting what seems false, then why are we angry with the multitude? They act based on their impressions. But they are thieves, you say, and criminals. What does that mean? It means they are mistaken about what is good and evil. Should we then be angry with them, or should we pity them? Show them their error, and they will desist. But if they do not see it, they have nothing superior to their own opinion to follow. Should not this thief and this adulterer be put to death, you ask? Do not ask it that way. Ask rather, should not this man be put to death who has been deceived and deluded about the most important matters, who is blind not in the eyes of his body but in the eyes of his mind? If you put it this way, you will see how inhuman it sounds. It is like saying, should not this blind man or this deaf man be killed? If the loss of the greatest things is the greatest harm, and if the greatest thing in a man is a right moral choice and he has lost that, why are you angry with him? If you must be affected by his misfortune, pity him, do not hate him. Drop this readiness to take offense. Why do you say, these damned fools? How did you suddenly become so wise and intolerant? Why are we angry? Because we admire the things that such men steal. Do not attach value to your clothes, and you will not be angry with the thief. Do not attach value to the beauty of your wife, and you will not be angry with the adulterer. Know that the thief and the adulterer have no power over what is truly yours, but only over what belongs to others and is not in your power. If you can dismiss these things, with whom will you be angry? But as long as you prize these externals, be angry with yourself, not with them. Consider, you have beautiful clothes and your neighbor does not. You have a window and you air them. He does not know what the true good of man is, but imagines it consists in having beautiful clothes. The very same opinion you hold. Shall he not come and take them? If you show a piece of meat to a hungry man and then guard it, do you expect him not to snatch at it? Do not provoke him, do not air your clothes. I myself had an iron lamp by my household shrine. Hearing a noise one day, I ran down and found the lamp gone. I reasoned that the thief had felt an impulse he could not resist. So I said to myself, tomorrow you will find an earthenware one. Oh, for a man can only lose what he has. I lost my clothes. Yes, because you had clothes. I have a pain in my head. You cannot have a pain in your horns, can you? Loss and grief relate only to what we possess. But the tyrant will chain me. What will he chain? Your leg? He will cut off. What? Your neck. What will he neither chain nor cut off? Your moral choice. This is why the ancients commanded us to know thyself. We ought to exercise ourselves in small things and proceed from there to the greater. I have a headache. Do not cry, alas. I do not say you may not groan, but do not groan in the center of your being. If your slave is slow to bring a bandage, do not scream and say, everyone hates me. Walk upright and free, trusting in your own principles, not in the strength of your body like an athlete. For a man should not be invincible in the way a donkey is. Who is the invincible man? He whom nothing outside the sphere of moral choice can disconcert. I look at him as I would an athlete. He survived the first round. How will he do in the second? What if it is hot? What if the contest is at Olympia? So here, if money is thrown in his way, he despises it. What if it is a beautiful girl? What if it is dark? What if it is reputation or abuse or death? What if he is drunk or melancholy or asleep? If he can overcome all these, this is the invincible athlete. Book 1, Chapter 19, How One Should Behave Toward Tyrants. If a man possesses some advantage, or even imagines he does, it is inevitable that, if he is uneducated, he will be puffed up by it. The tyrant says, I am the most powerful of all. And what can you give me? Can you guarantee me desire free from hindrance? How can you, when you do not have it yourself? Can you give me aversion that never falls into what it would avoid? In what does your power lie? All men pay court to me. Yes, and I pay attention to my writing tablet, washing it and wiping it. Does that make the tablet superior to me? I pay attention to my donkey. I wash his feet and groom him. Do you not see that all men pay court to themselves, and they attend to you only as they would their donkey? Who pays court to you as a man? Show me that. Who wishes to become like you as men wish to be like Socrates? But I can cut off your head. Ah, you are right. I had forgotten that I must attend to you as I would to a fever or the cholera, and raise an altar to you like the altar of fever in Rome. What disturbs and confuses the multitude? Is it the tyrant and his bodyguards? No, for that which is by nature free cannot be disturbed or hindered by anything but itself. It is a man's own opinions that disturb him. When the tyrant says, "I will chain your leg," the man who values his leg cries, "No, have mercy!" The man who values his moral choice says, "If it seems best to you, chain it." Do you not care? I do not care. I will show you that I am master. How can you? Zeus has set me free. Do you think he would allow his own son to be enslaved? You are master of my corpse. Take that. So when you come to me, you do not pay attention to me? No, I pay attention only to myself. If you wish me to say I pay attention to you, I will say it as I would say I pay attention to my water pot. This is not selfishness. It is the nature of the animal to do everything for its own sake. Even the sun acts for its own sake, and Zeus himself. But when Zeus wishes to be the rain-giver and the fruit-giver and the father of men, he cannot fulfill these titles without serving the common interest. He has so constituted the rational animal that he cannot attain his own proper goods without contributing to the common good. Thus, it is not antisocial to do everything for one's own sake. Do you expect a man to stand aloof from himself and his own interest? When men hold absurd opinions about things outside their moral choice, treating them as good or evil, they inevitably pay court to tyrants. And not only to tyrants, but to their chamberlains too. How does a man become wise instantly when Caesar puts him in charge of the royal chamber pot? We hear people say, "Felicio spoke very wisely to me today." I wish he were thrown off his dung heap so you would call him a fool again. Epictetus owned a slave who was a shoemaker. He sold him because he was useless. By chance, the man was bought by one of Caesar's household and became Caesar's shoemaker. You should have seen how Epictetus flattered him then. How is my good Felicio today? If anyone asked, what is the master doing? The answer would be, he is consulting with Felicio about something important. Had he not sold him as useless? Who made him wise all of a sudden? This is what comes of honoring things outside the sphere of moral choice. Someone is made a tribune and everyone congratulates him. He goes up to the Capitol and offers sacrifice. Who ever offered sacrifice for having right desires or for impulse in harmony with nature? We thank the gods for what we mistake for the good. A man spoke to me today about the priesthood of Augustus. I told him, "Let it be, friend. You will spend a great deal for nothing." "But," he said, "my name will be written on contracts." "Will you stand by and tell everyone who reads them, 'That is my name'? And what will you do when you are dead?" "My name will survive me." "Write it on a stone and it will survive you just as well. But who will remember you outside of Nicopolis?" "But I shall wear a crown of gold." "If your heart is set on a crown, take one of roses and put it on. You will look more elegant in that." Book 1, Chapter 20. About reason, how it investigates itself. Every art and faculty has a specific field of investigation. When the art is of the same nature as what it investigates itself. When it is different, it does not. The art of shoemaking deals with leather, but the art itself is not leather. Therefore, it does not investigate itself. Grammar deals with written speech, but is not itself written speech. Thus, it cannot investigate itself. For what purpose has reason been given to us? For the proper use of impressions. And what is reason itself? It is a composite of certain impressions. Therefore, it naturally comes to investigate itself. Wisdom professes to contemplate things good, bad, and indifferent. And what is wisdom? A good. What is folly? A bad. Do you see that wisdom naturally investigates itself and its opposite? Therefore, the first and greatest task of the philosopher is to test and distinguish impressions, and to admit none that is untried. In the case of coinage, where we feel our interest is at stake, we have invented an art. The tester uses sight, touch, smell, and hearing. He drops the coin and listens to its ring, not once but many times, until he becomes a veritable musician in the art of testing. Where the loss is visible, we take great pains not to be deceived. But where the loss concerns our own ruling principle, we yawn and nod, accepting any impression that comes along, for we do not see the harm. If you want to know how careless you are about the good and the bad, and how eager about the indifferent, Observe your own attitude. You would be devastated by blindness of the eyes, but you are indifferent to the delusion of the mind. But this requires great preparation and toil, you say. So what? Did you expect the greatest of arts to be acquired easily? The principal doctrine of the philosophers is indeed brief. The end is to follow the gods, and the essence of the good is the proper use of impressions. But if you ask, what is God? What is an impression? What is the nature of the individual and the nature of the whole? Then the argument becomes long. If Epicurus comes and says that the good resides in the flesh, that too becomes a long argument. We must ask, what is the dominant principle in us? Is it the flesh or the will? If the good of the snail is in its shell, is the good of man in his body? Take yourself, Epicurus. What is the superior thing in you? What is it in you that deliberates, that examines, that forms the judgment that the flesh is the highest good? Why do you light your lamp and labor for us, writing so many books? Is it so that we may not be ignorant of the truth? But who are we to you? Thus the discussion becomes long. Book 1, Chapter 21. To those who want to be admired. When a man has found his proper station in life, he does not look outside himself for support or validation. What is it essentially that you hope for? For my own part, I am content if my desires and aversions are in harmony with nature, if I exercise my power of impulse and refusal and my capacity for purpose and design in a way that accords with nature. If I have this, I have everything I need. Why then do you walk among us stiff and puffed up as if you had swallowed a skewer? I wish, you say, that all who meet me would admire me. I want them to follow me, crying out, "What a great philosopher!" And who are these people by whom you wish to be admired? Are they not the very same people whom you are in the habit of calling madmen? Is this, then, your ambition? Do you wish to be admired by lunatics? Book 1, Chapter 22, Concerning Preconceptions. In the realm of general preconceptions, there is no conflict among men. We all share the same fundamental ideas. Who among us does not assume that the good is something beneficial, something choice-worthy, something to be sought in every circumstance? Who does not admit that justice is fair and appropriate? In these abstract definitions, there is perfect harmony. Where then does conflict arise? It arises in the application of these preconceptions to the particular facts of life. One man sees an action and says, "Well done, he is a brave man." Another looks at the same action and says, "No, he is a fool, out of his mind." Here is the root of our disputes. This is the conflict between Jews, Syrians, Egyptians, and Romans. They do not disagree that holiness should be pursued above all else. They disagree entirely on whether it is holy or unholy to eat the flesh of a pig. Consider the quarrel between Agamemnon and Achilles. Call them before us. What do you say, Agamemnon? Should we not do what is proper and right? Of course we should, he replies. And you, Achilles, do you not agree that what is appropriate ought to be done? I agree to that above all. Here in the realm of preconceptions there is no dispute. But apply these ideas. One says, "I ought not to be forced to return my prize, Chryses, to her father." The other says, "But you must." One says, "If I must give her back, then I should take the prize of another." The other says, "You surely do not intend to take my beloved?" "Yes, yours," he replies. "Am I to be the only one left with nothing? And am I alone to be without?" Here is the conflict. It is not a clash of definitions, but a clash of application. One applies the preconception of the appropriate wrongly, and chaos ensues. What, then, does it mean to be educated? It means learning to apply our natural preconceptions to particular cases in accordance with nature. It means, above all, making the critical distinction between what is in our power and what is not. We must place the good solely in the things that are in our power, in moral character and its functions. We must realize that the body, parents, country, and possessions are not in our power. But, you object, is health not a good thing? Is life not a good? No, nor children, nor parents, nor country. If you say these things are good, you set yourself up for misery, for if I place the good in things outside my power, and then I am harmed or deprived of them, it is inevitable that I will be unhappy. It is inevitable that I will look at the gods and hate them for not helping me. How can a man love a god who allows him to suffer evil? If the good lies in my land, and my neighbor steals it, I must naturally become his enemy. I must plot against him. This is the source of all wars, factions, and tyrannies. But if I place the good only in my moral choice, who can hinder me? Who can harm me? I preserve my character. I preserve my freedom, and I preserve my piety toward the gods. Book 1, Chapter 23. Against Epicurus. Even Epicurus, who argues that the good resides in the flesh, understands deep down that man is by nature a social animal. But having once placed our good in the husk, that is the body, he is trapped by his own logic. He argues vehemently that we should not admire or accept anything that is detached from the nature of the good. And he is right to insist on this. If the good is the flesh, then anything that pains the flesh is evil. How is it then that he is suspicious of family life? Why does he dissuade the wise man from bringing up children? Why does he fear that the philosopher will be involved in sorrow? Does he worry about the sorrow of his house slave, Mouse? No. What is it to him if little Mouseling cries? But he knows that if a child is born to him, it will no longer be in his power not to love it. He knows the power of that bond. He knows that for the sake of the child, the parent will suffer, will work, will expose himself to the very things Epicurus calls evil to secure the child's safety. For this same reason, he says that a man of sense will not engage in politics. He knows what political life demands: sacrifice, anxiety, and service to others. If you intend to live like a fly among flies, untethered and unconcerned, there is nothing to prevent you. But Epicurus knows we are not flies. He dares to say, "Let us not raise children." Yet a sheep does not desert its own offspring, nor does a wolf. And shall a man desert his? What do you want of us, Epicurus? Would you have us be as foolish as sheep? Yet even they do not desert their young. Would you have us be as savage as wolves? Even they protect their brood. Who listens to you when he sees his little child fallen and crying on the ground? I imagine that even your own mother and father, had they divined that you would grow up to say such things, would not have cast you out. The force of nature is too strong for your philosophy. Book 1, Chapter 24. How we should struggle with circumstances. It is circumstances that show what men are. When a difficulty befalls you, do not complain. Remember that God, like a trainer of wrestlers, has matched you with a tough young opponent. For what purpose, you ask? So that you may become an Olympic victor. But this cannot happen without sweat. In my view, no one has a better opportunity than you have now, if only you are willing to grapple with this circumstance as an athlete grapples with a sparring partner. We are sending you as a spy into the world to report back to us on the true nature of things. But we do not want a cowardly spy. We do not want one who hears a noise and sees a shadow and comes running back in terror, crying, "The enemy is upon us. Things are terrible. Death is terrible. Exile is terrible. Poverty is terrible. Fly, my friends. The danger is overwhelming." If you come to us with such a report, we shall say, "Be gone. Prophesy to yourself. We made a mistake in sending such a man." Diogenes was a true spy. He was sent before you, and he gave us a very different report. He told us that death is no evil, for it is not shameful. He told us that ill repute is merely the empty noise of madmen. And what a report he gave us about pain, about pleasure, about poverty. He said that to be naked is better than any purple robe, and to sleep on the bare ground is the softest bed. And he proved his report by his own condition, by his assurance, his serenity, his freedom, and his gleaming, healthy body. "There is no enemy near," he says. "All is quiet." "How is that, Diogenes?" "Look at me," he replies. "Am I hurt? Am I wounded? Am I running away from anyone?" This is a proper spy. But you come back trembling because you saw a shadow. "But what shall I do?" you ask. "What do you do when you leave a ship? Do you walk off carrying the rudder and the oars? No, you take only your own kit, your oil flask, and your wallet. So now, if you remember what is yours, you will never lay claim to what belongs to another." The tyrant says, "Take off your senator's robe. Here is my robe, I take it off. Take off your toga. Here is my toga. Now take off your tunic. See, I am naked. But you still arouse my envy. I will kill you. Then take my whole poor body. Do you think I fear a man who can only command my carcass? But, you say, he will not leave his estate to me. What of it? Did you forget that none of these things was yours to begin with? How do you call them yours? Only as you call the bed in the inn yours. If the innkeeper dies and leaves you the beds, well and good. If he leaves them to another, then they will have them, and you will look for another bed, and if you don't find one, you will sleep on the ground. rest easy, and snore away. Remember that tragedies are about the rich, the kings, and the tyrants. No poor man swells a tragedy, except as a member of the chorus. The kings begin in prosperity, deck the halls with garlands, then about the third or fourth act. O Cytheron, why did you receive me? Slave, where are your crowns now? Where is your diadem? Your guards cannot help you. So when you approach one of these great men, remember this. You are approaching a tragic figure. You are meeting Oedipus. But, you say, he is happy. He walks with a great entourage. And I too mingle with the crowd and walk with an entourage. The chief thing to remember is that the door is open. Do not be more timid than little children. When the game no longer pleases them, they say, I will play no longer, and they leave. So do you, when things seem to you of such a kind, say, I will no longer play, and be rid of it. But if you stay, do not complain. Book 1, Chapter 25, on the same theme. If these things are true, if we are not merely acting out a charade, but truly believe that the good and the evil lie solely in the choices of our will, and that all external things are indifferent to us, then why are we still afraid? Why do we tremble? No one has authority over the things we value, and the things over which others do have authority, we do not value. What then is left to quarrel about? What is left to fear? But tell me, you ask, what am I to do? Why do you ask me? Has not Zeus himself told you? Has he not made you of such a nature that some things are yours, free and unhindered, while others are not yours, but subject to hindrance and compulsion? What orders did you bring with you when you came from him into this world? He said, guard what is your own. Do not covet what belongs to another. Faithfulness is yours. Modesty is yours. Who can take these from you? Who can hinder you from using them other than yourself? And how do you hinder yourself? By attaching your desire to things that are not your own. Keep the commandments of Zeus, but you ask for more instructions. You want me to tell you how to play the game. I answer, play as long as it entertains you. In the festival of the Saturnalia, a king is chosen by lot to preside over the games. He gives his orders. You drink. You mix the wine. You sing. You go away. You come here. I obey so as not to spoil the game. But then he says, you suppose that you are in a miserable condition. I answer, I will not suppose it. Who can force me to think what I do not choose to think? He can force me to drink or to sing, but he cannot force my judgment. It is the same in life. We agree to play certain roles. Agamemnon says to me, go to Achilles and take his prize, Briseis. I go. Come back. I come back. But now, he says, believe that you are wretched. I reply, no, that is not part of the game. That is not within your power to command. How long must we obey the rules of this game of life? As long as it is granted to us to do so with dignity and honor. But some men are sour and hard to please. One says, I cannot bear to dine with this man, for he tells the same war stories every day. How I fought in Mysia, how I climbed the hill. Another says, I don't mind the stories, I just want my dinner. It is for you to judge. Compare the value of the dinner against the boredom of the stories. But do nothing in the spirit of a burdened man, a man who feels he is being crushed, for no one compels you. Is there smoke in the house? If it is not too thick, I will stay. If it is too much, I leave. For you must remember this and hold it fast. The door is always open. Do not live in Nicopolis, the emperor says. Very well, I will not live there. Do not live in Athens. I will not live in Athens. Do not live in Rome. I will not live in Rome. Live on the desolate island of Gyara. I will live on Gyara. But if the smoke on Gyara becomes too suffocating, I will depart to the place where no one can stop me from dwelling, that final habitation that is open to all. The last garment I wear is this poor body. Beyond this, no one has any power over me. This is why Demetrius said to Nero, you threaten me with death, but nature threatens you. If I cherish my body, I have given myself a master. If I cherish my property, I have given myself a master. I have exposed a flank where I can be attacked. Just as when a snake draws in its head, I say, strike that part which he protects, so it is with you. Whatever you guard and cherish is the very spot where your enemy will strike. If you remember this, whom will you flatter? Whom will you fear? But I want to sit in the senators' seats. Then you are creating a crush and a squeeze for yourself. But how else shall I see the show comfortably? Do not watch the show, and you will not be squeezed. Or wait until the show is over, and then go sit in the senators' seats and sun yourself. Remember that we are the ones who torment ourselves. We are the ones who squeeze ourselves. It is our own opinions that do this. What does it mean to be insulted? Go stand by a rock and insult it. What have you accomplished? If you listen to an insult like a rock, what has the insulter gained? But if he has the advantage of a victim who is willing to be wounded, then he has succeeded. Strip him, cries the tyrant. What do you mean, him? You mean, take his cloak. I have insulted you. Much good may it do you. This was the practice of Socrates. This was why he always wore the same face. But we would rather study anything than how to be free and unhindered. But, you say, philosophers speak in paradoxes. And are there no paradoxes in the other arts? Is it not a paradox to cut into a man's eye so that he may see? If you told this to a savage, would he not think you a cruel butcher? Why then do you wonder if, in the art of living, there are truths that seem strange to the uninitiated? Book 1, Chapter 26. What is the law of life? A student was once reading hypothetical arguments, and Epictetus said to him, "This is a law of hypotheses, that we must accept what follows from the premise. But much more important is the law of life, that we must do what follows from nature. If we wish to observe what is consistent with nature in every matter, we must see to it that we do not let the consequences escape us, and that we do not admit contradictions. The philosophers train us first in the theory of logic because it is easier. There the material is fixed and does not distract us. But in the affairs of life, we are easily pulled away by our desires and fears. He is a fool, then, who wants to begin with the difficult matters of life before he has trained his mind in the easier matters of theory. It is like the excuse one might make to one's parents. When they are angry that you are studying philosophy, you should say, "Father, I make mistakes. I do not know what is right or wrong or what is my duty. If this knowledge can be learned, let me learn it. If you can teach me, then teach me. But if you cannot, allow me to learn from those who say they know. For surely I do not go wrong on purpose. The cause of my error is ignorance. Do you not want me to be rid of my ignorance? Or do you think your anger will teach me how to live any more than anger could teach me music or piloting? But this defense is only for one who is truly studying to improve his life. If you are studying merely to show off at a dinner party, you are wasting your time. You want to impress a senator with your knowledge of syllogisms. But the things that truly matter are not syllogisms. They are the great choices of life. I knew a man who clung to the knees of Epaphroditus in tears, wailing that he was destitute because he had only 1.5 million sesterces left. And what did Epaphroditus do? Did he laugh at him, as you are laughing now? No, he looked at him with amazement and said, "Poor man, how have you managed to survive? How have you endured such silence and deprivation?" Once, when a student was reading hypothetical arguments and another student laughed at him, Epictetus turned to the laugher and said, "You are laughing at yourself. You did not prepare this young man. You did not check if he was able to follow these arguments. And yet you treat him as if he were a reader. If a mind cannot follow the sequence of a syllogism, can we trust it to praise or blame correctly? Can we trust it to judge what is good or bad? This is the beginning of philosophy, the recognition of the weakness of the ruling faculty. We must realize that our minds are weak and easily confused. We cannot swallow the great loaves of wisdom all at once. We will vomit them up. We must begin with the little crumbs. We must learn to distinguish the true from the false in theory before we can hope to do it in the tumult of life. In theory, it is easy to refute an ignorant man. In life, no one offers himself to be refuted. We hate the man who points out our errors, but Socrates said that the unexamined life is not worth living. Book 1, Chapter 27. In how many ways impressions arise and what aids we should provide against them. Impressions come to us in 4 ways. First, things are, and they appear to be. Second, things are not, and they do not appear to be. Third, things are, but they appear not to be. Fourth, things are not, and yet they appear to be. It is the task of the educated man to hit the mark in all these cases. Whatever it is that troubles us, we must apply the specific remedy. if it is the sophisms of the Pyrrhonists and academics that confuse us, making us doubt the evidence of our senses, we must apply the remedy of logic. If it is the plausibility of things, making bad things appear good, that beguiles us, we must apply the remedy of clear preconceptions. If it is habit that weighs upon us, compelling us to act in old, familiar, erroneous ways, we must apply the remedy of a contrary habit. You hear the common people say, "Poor man, he died, his father perished, his mother was cut off in her prime." Oppose this habit with a contrary habit. Distance yourself from these expressions. Do not let the language of the mob infect your mind. When death appears to be an evil, have ready the argument that it is a duty to avoid evil, but death is necessary and cannot be avoided. Therefore, death is not an evil. For where can I go to escape it? Is there any country where people do not die? Is there any magic charm against it? I am not Sarpedon, the son of Zeus, who could say elegantly, "I go to battle. Either I will win glory, or I will give another the chance to win it from me." That is a height of nobility perhaps beyond us, but this much is within our reach, to ask, where can I escape death? Nowhere. Then, since I cannot escape it, shall I die lamenting and trembling? The origin of all human suffering is this, to wish for something that does not happen. If I can change the external world to suit my wish, I will do so. But if I cannot, I am ready to tear out the eyes of the man who hinders me. That is the nature of man. He cannot bear to be deprived of the good. And when he cannot change the world and cannot destroy his enemy, he sits down and abuses God. But that is impious, you say. What does he care? If God does not help him, why should he revere God? This is the harsh truth. Unless you place your self-interest in the same place as your piety, you will not preserve your piety. If you think your good lies in things God does not grant you, you will hate him. Let the Pyrrhonist and the academic come. I have no leisure for their word games. I must secure my own soul. If I had a dispute about a piece of land, I would call a lawyer. In a dispute about my own happiness, shall I be satisfied with clever quibbles? How perception happens, whether by the whole body or a part, I may not know. But I know for certain that you and I are not the same person. When I want to eat, I put the bread in my mouth, not yours. When I want to enter a bath, I do not walk into a mill. The senses guide me well enough for life. Those who deny the evidence of the senses are playing a game for those who have nothing better to do. Book 1, Chapter 28, that we should not be angry with men, and what are the small things and the great among men? What is the reason that we assent to anything? It is because it appears to us to be true. It is impossible to assent to what appears to be false. The nature of the mind is such that it must bow to the truth, reject the false, and suspend judgment on the uncertain. Try, if you can, to believe that it is night now. You cannot. Try to believe that the stars are even in number. You cannot. Therefore, when a man assents to a falsehood, know that he did not wish to assent to the false. It appeared to him to be true. Every soul is deprived of the truth against its will, as Plato says. Now, in the sphere of action, we have the good and the bad, the advantageous and the disadvantageous. Can a man think something is advantageous to him and not choose it? He cannot. But, you say, what about Medea? She killed her own children. She did it because she thought it was more advantageous to gratify her anger and punish her husband than to save her children. But she was deceived. Then show her clearly that she is deceived, and she will not do it. But as long as you do not show her, she follows what appears to her to be true. Why then are you angry with her? She is confused. She has lost her way in the greatest matters. She has become a viper instead of a human being. Should you not rather pity her? As we pity the blind and the lame, why do we not pity those who are blind in their ruling faculty? Remember this clearly. The measure of every man's action is his impression. If the impression is right, he is blameless. If it is wrong, he pays the penalty. For it is impossible for one man to err and another to suffer for it. The man who errs is the one who is harmed. If you keep this in mind, you will not be angry with anyone. You will not hate anyone. So, you ask, do you mean that the Iliad is nothing but a collection of impressions and the use of impressions? Exactly. An impression came to Paris to carry off Helen. An impression came to Helen to go with him. If Menelaus had received the impression that it was a gain to lose such a wife, there would have been no Iliad. Does it depend on such small things? What do you mean, small? Do you call wars and the death of many men and the burning of cities great? Are they not? What is great about them? The bodies of men died. The bodies of sheep and oxen die too. The nests of men were burned. The nests of storks are burned too. What is great or dreadful in that? Is a man's house so different from a stork's nest? Is a man then like a stork? In respect of his body, yes. In respect of his mortality, yes. But look at where he differs. He understands what he does. He has a sense of justice, of fidelity, of honor. Where then is the great evil? It is not where you think. It is not in the burning of Troy. It is where the difference lies. Paris was destroyed not when the Greeks burned his city, but when he lost the man within him who was faithful, the man who respected the laws of hospitality. Achilles fell not when Patroclus died, but when he gave way to anger, when he wept for a girl, when he forgot that he was there to fight, not to make love. This is how men are destroyed. This is the siege, this is the razing of the citadel, when right judgments are overturned. But, you say, women and children are enslaved, men are slaughtered. Are these not evils? Let us produce our standards. Let us look at our preconceptions. Is the slaughter of a body an evil for the man who dies, or the man who kills? The man who kills destroys his own soul. The man who dies only loses a life that must be lost anyway. We do not judge weights or lengths by random guesses. We use a scale. We use a ruler. Yet in the most important matters, good and evil, happiness and misery, we act at random. We follow the first impression that strikes us. We are madmen. But I am not Agamemnon or Achilles. You suffer from the same sickness. You follow appearances without testing them. That is the tragedy of your life. Book 1, Chapter 29. On Steadfastness. The essence of the good is a certain kind of moral choice. The essence of the bad is a certain kind of moral choice. What then are external things? They are merely the materials for the moral choice, in dealing with which it will find its own proper good or evil. How will it find the good? By not admiring the materials. For if the judgments about the materials are straight, the moral choice is good. If they are crooked and distorted, the moral choice is bad. God has laid down this law. If you want anything good, get it from yourself. You say, no, I will get it from another. I say, no, get it from yourself. When a tyrant threatens me, whom does he threaten? I will chain your leg. He threatens my leg. I will cut off your head. He threatens my head. I will throw you in prison. He threatens my whole body. Does he not threaten you at all? If I consider my body and my head and my leg as nothing to me, then he does not threaten me. But if I cling to them, then it is I whom he threatens. But you say, I want to control your judgments too. Who gave you that power? How can you conquer the judgment of another? I will frighten you, and thus I will conquer you. Do you not realize that the will conquers itself? No one else can conquer it. This is the law of God. The stronger always prevails over the weaker. But 10 men are stronger than one. Stronger at what? At lifting weights? Yes. At killing? Yes. But are 10 men with wrong opinions stronger than 1 man with right opinions? No. In this, the one is stronger than the 10. But Socrates suffered at the hands of the Athenians. Slave, do not say Socrates. Say the thing as it is. The poor body of Socrates was carried off and imprisoned by stronger bodies. The poor body of Socrates drank the hemlock. Did Socrates himself suffer? Was his soul conquered? Anytus and Miletus can kill me, but they cannot harm me. This is the voice of a man who knows where his strength lies. We must learn this lesson, that nothing which is not within the power of the will can harm the will. But a man has seized my cloak. Let him have it. He drags me to the marketplace. Let him drag. He drags a body. He throws me in prison. What enters the prison? A body. If I have learned this, what do I care? I sit in prison and say, this man who drags me does not know who I am. He thinks he is dragging a man, but he is only dragging a corpse. Come out of prison, the tyrant says. I come out. Go back in. I go back in. How long will you do this? As long as reason chooses to remain with the body. When reason chooses to leave, I leave. I do not stay at any price, but I leave as a free man, not as a slave running away. I wait for God to sound the retreat. Should we preach these things to the mob? To what end? It is enough if we are convinced ourselves. When children come to us clapping their hands and shouting, today is the merry Saturnalia, do we say to them, no, the Saturnalia is not merry? No, we clap our hands with them. So, when you cannot change a man's opinion, clap your hands with him, or at least keep silent. We must have these principles ready for use. We are like athletes who have trained in the gymnasium but are afraid to enter the stadium. I don't want a difficult opponent, you say. Then you do not want the prize. A wrestler who is matched against a weakling wins no glory. God, like a trainer, has matched you with a rough opponent. Why? So that you may become an Olympic victor. But it takes sweat. But the contest is too hard. Look at the gladiators of Caesar. They pray to be matched against the best. They are angry if they are left to fight nobodies. Will you not have the same spirit? You have been given a body, parents, brothers, a country. These are your materials. Do not ask for different ones. Show us how you can use them. I have been made a governor. Then show us how a governor should behave. I have been stripped of my rank and made a beggar. Then show us how a beggar should behave. Do not be like a tragic actor who thinks he is the mask and the robes. If you take away his robes, he is lost. But you, if I take away your wealth, your rank, your fine clothes, what is left? If you are a philosopher, a man is left. Book 1, Chapter 30. What we should have ready in circumstances. When you are about to enter the presence of some great man, remember that there is another looking down from above, and that you must please him first. He asks you, "What did you say in the school about exile, and prison, and bonds, and death, and disgrace?" You answer, "I said they were indifferent." "And what do you say now? Have they changed?" "No." "Have you changed?" "No." "Tell me then, what are the things that are indifferent?" "Things that are not in the power of the will." And what follows? "That things not in the power of the will are nothing to me." "And what are the good things?" "A will correctly disposed, and the right use of impressions." "And what is the end of life?" "To follow thee." Do you still say this now? I say the same today as I said yesterday. If you have this conversation with God before you enter, you will go in with confidence. You will see what it means to be a trained athlete entering the arena against untrained men. You will look at the pomp and the guards and the power of the great man, and you will say to yourself, "Why did I prepare so long and so hard for this? Is this all there is? Is this what people are afraid of? I prepared for a lion and I found a mouse.